Oh no, Trump the dictator is taking away the Department of Education. Let me tell you what that means before you freak out, and it's actually not bad at all.
No, it's bad. Let's dive in, shall we?
To start it off, the Department of Education actually wasn't put in place until 1979. It's fairly new, and the U.S. has done just fine without it before, so.
Okay, the Department of Education was created because, no, things were not fine. Schools didn't even start including students with disabilities until the federal government stepped in. So if by fine you mean kids getting wildly different educations depending on their race or income level or if they're disabled or not, sure. But if you care about equal opportunity, then the Department of Education is essential.
Also, the U.S. spends about $18,000 a year, give or take, on each pupil per year. But yet, we're ranked 12th in education, which is horrible.
I don't know where you're getting that figure from because per pupil spending varies wildly in our country. Most of the funding comes from property taxes. That's why wealthier neighborhoods get wealthier schools. That's why federal funds are so critical. They help level the playing field. And countries that beat us in rankings don't just throw money at education. They respect teachers. They have a whole system that respects public education.
So, here are some of his plans to make it better. Schooling will no longer be controlled by the federal government. It'll be controlled by the states. I would say that's way better because local communities know more about their kids than the federal government does. For example, I live in a state where a lot of people's first language is Spanish, not English. Now we're able to cater to those kids.
States might know their communities well, but that does not mean that they're going to prioritize every student equally or protect every student's rights. If we lose the Department of Education, oversight for English language learners is going to be a massive loss. There's even an entire office of civil rights within the Department of Education that will handle things like discrimination. And in states that don't respect bilingual education or immigration in general, or they might have English only rules in their school that are really harmful to ELs, they are going to be unchecked without the Department of Education. In general, it's worth noting that before the Department of Education, many states did not prioritize students with additional needs. This is why we have laws like IDEA for students with disabilities and why we have Title I funding for low-income schools. These programs literally came from the federal government because states weren't filling those gaps on their own.
Teachers will be paid on a merit system, meaning if that teacher has an advanced degree, they will get paid more.
That's not what a merit system is. Merit system is a system where teachers' salaries or bonuses are based on their performances. Ooh, by the way.
And if a teacher would like to continue their education, they will also get paid more.
What you're describing literally already happens. I mean, districts will often not hire highly qualified teachers with many degrees if they want to save a buck, but salary schedules with bumps for additional degrees and credits are a thing pretty widely.
No more districting schools. So that means if the school in your district is ghetto,
okay, let's not say that word,
and it sucks and it's trashy, your kids don't have to go there and you don't have to move to get them to go to another school. You can pick wherever you want them to go. This will make the schools more competitive.
And there's no transportation provided for that. So your idea is to make parents lug their kids to schools outside of their area and turn those schools into little Hunger Game arenas competing for resources. This literally only benefits wealthy families who can afford the luxury of choice. Federal oversight is in place because we know that without it, lower income and rural schools suffer. Look at places with broad school choice programs like Arizona and Florida. We've seen schools losing funding and even facing closure while private schools are under little to no accountability to meet quality standards.
Because schools get funded by how many kids are going to their school.
Funding in the United States comes from things like property taxes, state contributions, and federal funding. Most of a school's budget depends on their local property taxes, which means that the wealth of the surrounding area plays a huge role in their funding. Schools with wealthy areas get more money. So that's why federal and state funds exist to balance out some of this. But even with this support, poorer districts are often left underfunded. You're missing a big part of the picture here.
He wants to restore American pride back into the classroom.
Okay.
Meaning the kids will be saying the Pledge of Allegiance and U.S. history will be taught, no matter what, the good and the bad, all of it.
So let's say you have a liberal city, let's Los Angeles, San Diego, and they just decide we're going to get rid of that history. We got new history. This is America built off the backs of slaves on stolen land. And that curriculum comes in.
Then we don't send them money.
Lastly, there will be a reward-based system funded by the states for the counties. Meaning if a school does good or bad, they will receive more or less funding depending on what they're doing.
So you want No Child Left Behind again? Because we've tried this before with No Child Left Behind. And it was a freaking disaster. Children were left behind. They're behind. I get that sounds good to you, but it's going to punish schools that already need extra support, and we've already done it, and we've already gotten rid of it in 2015.
For example, if a school were to implement things to make school a safer place for all people, they would get more funding for that. But they would lose funding for talking about politics or pushing religion on children. But children will be allowed to pray. So you cannot tell a kid, no, you cannot pray, you cannot practice your religion in school. You just can't force it on somebody else. And there has to be parent permission before anybody talks about trans ideologies to those kids, or else that school could lose funding completely.
So students can pray freely, but topics like their identity are off limits. Okay, that's a form of censorship. I thought you guys really hate that. I guess you want the discrimination that comes with eliminating the Department of Education. The people yearn for oppressing minority groups. Some people.
Sorry that video is kind of long, but if I missed anything, do not be afraid to point it out. We all need to learn about this. Sorry that video is kind of long, but if I missed anything, do not be afraid to point it out.
Hope that helps!